Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and before we dive in, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this on your Facebook page. Okay, so I'm out on the back porch. It's about 5 o'clock, so it's a little warm outside. This weekend we're going to be expecting a lot of warm temps. We're going to get up into the 90s this weekend. I've got some planting projects. One of them is this lavender topiary that I picked up from Costco. Very excited about it. Got some planting projects coming up. A lot of stuff going up. You can probably see over here, this is all my amaryllis bulbs all planted up for the season. So feeling really good about stuff. But today I wanted to talk to you all about cut and come again flowers. And this is something that's been requested that you guys wanted me to chat about. And basically I want to talk about what cut and come again flower, what are cut and come again flowers, how you can go about growing them in your space, how they're great space savers, and then some of my absolute favorite cut and come again flowers, and then a few different tips on how to keep those producing flowers for you all season long. So what are cut and come again flowers? Some flowers stop blooming once you cut them, while others seem to explode with new growth after every harvest. And those are the ones that are cut and come again, some ones that just continue to produce more blooms even though you harvested the old blooms. There are also flowers that keep producing new blooms after being cut instead of stopping after a single bloom. One of my favorite flowers is iris, Dutch iris, and they produce one bloom and that's it. They don't produce any more. And there are lots of different flowers like that. Peonies are similar to that. Lots of beautiful flowers that do that and do not produce additional flowers once cut. Not all flowers have this trait. Some, like tulips or sunflowers, and that means single stem sunflowers, are one and done. Cutting them stimulates more branching and flower production, extending the blooming season. That's why we call them cut and come again. And they are ideal for small home gardens because they provide more blooms from flower plants. So instead of like having to have 50 iris bulbs, Dutch iris bulbs, in order to get 50 flowers, you could have a zinnia plant and be able to get 10 to 12 flowers off of each of those plants and only have to have a few of those plants. So it saves a ton of space if you have cut and come again flowers and you have a small space. And then on the vice versa, if you have a large space and you plant cut and come agains, you just have a large production of flowers. Okay, so let's talk about my favorite cut and come again flowers that I think are very appropriate for smaller gardens. I mean, I don't have a massive space. Some of y'all have acres, but most of us have just kind of a smaller garden. And so I really wanted to focus on flowers that work great in a small garden and that are going to give you bloom after bloom after bloom. Number one is zinnias, and y'all probably could have guessed it. Anybody who's grown any kind of flowers probably realizes that zinnias are an excellent cut and come again flower. I have been growing them for well over a decade. I guess we're getting further along. I've been saying well over a decade for a couple of years now. I think we're getting close to 13, 14, 15 years of gardening at this point. Zinnias are one of the easiest cut flowers to grow. They love the heat. They come in a ton of different colors. Lots of beautiful colors for you to look at. They need to be cut deep in order to produce more flowers. See, we don't just cut off that very top flower. We want to cut deep into the plant in order to encourage more branching and more blooms. And when you cut deep, you will need to leave a few sets of leaves at the base of the plant, and that will encourage more branching. You don't want to cut it all the way to the ground. I don't think there's any flowers we're going to talk about today that you cut actually all the way to the ground. But zinnias are just a really great, I suggest them as a beginner flower for beginner gardeners because they're just so pleasing and you get such quick satisfaction. They grow fast. Just really, really great flowers. But I know it's really hard to cut a flower. The more you cut on the zinnias, the more the blooms they're going to give you. Okay, next on the list is cosmos. They're a very carefree flower once you get them going. They're very airy, light. I think they add a lot of whimsy and cottagecore styling to a garden. They don't need rich soil or constant attention. The only constant attention I feel like they do need is cutting. Is harvesting the flowers. You want to harvest when the petals are just beginning to open for the longest amount of vase life. They come in shades of white, pale pink, purples. I've seen some red tones. I've seen some yellows, some orange, a wide variety of colors for cosmos. Very whimsical, very happy little blooms. And I really love when I'm arranging them how they can sit above an arrangement and they catch in the wind and they have a lot of movement to them. All right, next on my list is snapdragons, and this is one of my favorite cut and come again blooms because I feel like it produces for quite a while and it gives me blooms in earlier spring season. Like I have them in bloom right now, which is great. They are cool season blooms that can bloom for months if you harvest them correctly. If you don't harvest snapdragons, they will stop producing. They won't produce any more blooms and they will go dormant. You want to cut just above a set of healthy leaves so that they send up new shoots. So you just cut down towards the bottom of the plant. Make sure you leave 1 or 2 sets of healthy leaves, cut, and then you've got your long stem of snapdragons. They can handle light frost, so they can give you a longer blooming season, which is very important for my area. I start my snapdragons actually in the summer, plant them out in the fall, and then I have beautiful harvests, been able to harvest blooms in early summer. But they're just like a really great linear flower. They also come in a wide variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Sizes, you can get really short ones, you can get really tall ones, but the more you cut on them, the more they will produce. Now, they will stop producing during the hottest times of the year, but then sometimes they do give me another round once temperatures cool back in the fall. All right, next on my list is straw flowers, and I feel like these are either you love them or you hate them because they're very different looking and they're very different feeling and even sounding. They're a unique papery type flower that actually make for great fresh flowers, fresh cut flowers, but they also make for really great dried flowers as well. You keep harvesting them, they will keep producing into the fall. I like to cut down until I leave a set or 2 of leaves on the stem, typically about 6 inches above the ground. I actually like to pinch the straw flower seedlings earlier on to make them branch, because that first straw flower that it sends up can end up being 3 feet tall before it finally blooms. So I like to pinch those seedlings earlier on to force them to branch out earlier. Now these also come in a wide variety of colors: whites, pinks, yellows, oranges, purples, reds, all different beautiful colors. And like I said, they're excellent for dried arranging and dried floral crafts. Okay, next on my list is sweet peas. And now sweet peas are extremely fragrant blooms. There's nothing that smells like a sweet pea. They're so sweet and airy, and they smell like spring. They thrive in cool weather and keep blooming as long as you don't let them go to seed. I have to start my sweet peas earlier or in the summer, plant them out in late fall, overwinter them, and then get blooms in the spring. Or you can start them from seed probably in December for my area in order to get blooms in early spring. They do not like when our temps get above about 85 degrees. After that, they will stop producing at that point. Now, they do have shorter stems than most cut flowers. A lot of their stems might be max 8 inches, but there's just something sweet and airy and beautiful about sweet peas. They are worth growing at least a couple of times throughout your gardening career. I've got a cardinal, 2 cardinals living in my garden, a male and a female, and I think they have eggs, like a nest somewhere around here. I don't know if you can hear the cardinal talking. He likes to sit at the top of my willow tree and tell everybody that this is his area and go away. All right, next on my list for cut flowers that are really great for small gardens is celosia. And I do want to say this one with a bit of a warning. Once you plant celosia, you will have it for years and years to come because it does reseed itself very easily in my particular zone. It has amazing shapes, sizes, and colors. Lots of hot, fiery colors like oranges, reds, and yellows. It also has pinks, lavenders, whites. Very interesting, unique, feathery type of flower. And then it also comes in some different shapes as well, like a coxcomb, which looks more like a brain, which is super cool. It thrives in the heat. It is blooming when most nothing else is blooming in the garden. So it's excellent for that. The more you cut, the more it will branch. And these are also, once again, a seedling like I like to pinch earlier on to increase more branching. So when it's about 6 inches tall, I go ahead and pinch it and go ahead and get that early branching started. And the blooms are extremely long lasting. They also make for excellent, excellent dried flowers as well. But fair warning, once again, they do spread readily throughout your space. And so I haven't planted celosia in many a years, and I'm sure I will have at least a few varieties pop up every year, and definitely this year as well. Okay, and last on my list for cut flowers that are great for a small garden is gomphrena. Now, gomphrena is small little globe-shaped flowers. They are the sweetest, very cool, almost berry-looking flowers. They are heat tolerant and bloom all summer long, and they really don't get going until June. They don't get going until it definitely gets nice and hot. So even if you buy the plant earlier in the spring, you plant it outside, it's really going to just kind of stay stagnant until our heat gets going. And it's great fresh or dried. I feel like its stems are a little bit wonky, so when you are harvesting gomphrena stems, make sure you cut very low into the plant to encourage more branching, but also to give you a nice long stem to work with, since its stems kind of, instead of just being nice and straight up, they kind of go straight and then they segment slightly off. So they are kind of slightly off kilter. They don't sit nice and straight. They come in shades of white, ivory. I've seen some peachy blush colors, purples, magentas, very cool, interesting blooms. And I believe I said it's also good for dried flowers. So there's several of them in here are great for dried flowers. And if you can just imagine having gomphrena, celosia, and straw flowers and drying all of them and then be able to make your own arrangements with them, that'd be very cool. Okay, so those are some of my favorite cut and come again flowers for small gardens. But let's talk about how to cut for maximum growth. So a few different things on how to cut for maximum growth. We want to talk about when to cut, where to cut, and how often to cut. So for when to cut, you want to harvest flowers just as they are starting to open for longer vase life, but also so that the plant doesn't have an old bloom that just sits on it. And when you have old flowers that are just still attached to the plant, it triggers the plant to think, oh, it's part of my life cycle. It's time for me to make seeds. And it puts all its effort into this dried up, dying flower to produce seeds within that flower instead of producing new blooms. You want to use the wiggle test for things like zinnias. So you can get, obviously this is not a zinnia, give it a little wiggle. And if it's kind of the stem feels nice and stiff, then it's okay to harvest. If the head flops around a bunch on a zinnia, not a good time to harvest. And you can use that for a lot of different flowers because typically newer growth, so at the very end where the flower, it's most likely the newest growth on the plant. Newer growth tends to be a little bit weaker than a little bit older growth. I also prefer, especially during the summer, to cut early in the morning after the flowers have had all evening to recover from temperatures and to also suck up more water. And then once you cut these you need to immediately go into water so that they can continue to rehydrate themselves. Okay, where to cut. And I think that this is the hardest thing because it can be different for most flowers. But typically you want to cut deep into the plant just above a set of healthy leaves. And that's 2 leaves coming off the stem together. And where those 2 leaves come up, if you cut right above those, where each of those leaves are off, it will send a branch. So it'll send, you cut off that one branch and it's going to send off 2 in its place, which is great. This encourages side branching and more blooms. So nice and deep into the plant, making sure you leave at least 1 set of good, healthy leaves. Okay, and then finally, how often to cut. You want to harvest 1 to 2 times per week to keep plants producing. And this is a big area that I mess up on quite frequently. I forget to cut. I get busy, or I just think it looks really pretty and I feel bad cutting it. But in hindsight, that actually ends up hurting me more than it helps me because I end up having less flowers for a shorter amount of time. and which is not as great for all my pollinators, but also I did all that hard work not to enjoy flowers for multiple months. So really important to harvest 1 to 2 times per week. The longer the flowers stay on the plant, the more likely they are to set seed and stop blooming. So it's just like what we were talking about earlier. It's just like deadheading. You want to get rid of the dead flowers. You want to get rid of the older flowers on a plant so that they don't begin setting seed. Instead, you want the plant to think, oh, I have to make new flowers now because my old flowers are gone, right? So you want to cut off those older flowers to encourage more blooms. All right, deadheading versus harvesting. If you don't need flowers for bouquets, you still want to remove the spent blooms, deadheading, to keep the plants producing, just like what we're going back with, all right? You want to remove any flowers that don't look good, any flowers that are older, any flowers that you think are going to try to go to seed. You want to remove any of those because that triggers the plant to continue producing throughout the season. Okay, a few different things for caring for cut and come again flowers. Number one, fertilizing. You have to think these plants are producing for multiple weeks throughout the season. You're cutting the flowers away and you want it to produce more, you have to fertilize it. High producing flowers need regular fertilization, regular nutrients. Use a balanced liquid fertilizer every 2 weeks or add compost at the beginning of the season. So whichever works for you. I kind of do a combination of both. I'm trying to do a way better job at fertilizing my flowers this next year. And I will say I've already done some good fertilizing on my snapdragons and they're just growing like bonkers. So feeling really good and positive and, you know, looking forward to what the potential yield or harvest of my flowers will be if I'm fertilizing them more often this year. Next is watering. You want to water at the base of the plant to prevent disease. Most cut flowers prefer deep, consistent watering rather than frequent shallow water. So all my cut flowers are set up to drip irrigation. In the spring right now, the drip irrigation goes off every 3 days for 20 minutes to allow the water to really soak in. If we have a lot of rain that week, then I'll shut my irrigation off. But drip irrigation waters just at the base of the plant, very cost effective, water conscious way to water plants as opposed to using a big hose and going over the top. When you go over the top of cut flowers, a lot of times it can breed disease, create brown spots on your petals, just create a lot of issues. So if you can, watering from below works well. If you don't have a drip irrigation, then get down low with your hose and make sure you're watering just the base of the plant instead of raining water over the top of it. All right, and finally, pest and disease prevention. A couple of different pests and diseases that I've run into: powdery mildew. The best way to fight powdery mildew is to space plants apart for better airflow. It's very common in dahlias and zinnias. My zinnias definitely get powdery mildew, and having them in full sun and having really great airflow really helps battle that. Aphids, those can be blasted off with water, or you can use an insecticidal soap as well. I had a big aphid breakout on my seedlings in my house because it was just really warm and dry, and they really like that. And so once I brought them outside, hosed everything down, and also I'm allowing the, natural predators that like to eat aphids are all over the seedlings. My seedlings have all perked up and that aphids problem has gone away. And then finally, Japanese beetles. If you run into Japanese beetles, the best thing you can do for them is to hand pick them, which is the worst, right? If you see them, pick them off, drop them in a glass of water, drop them in a plastic bag and throw it away. Then in the morning, they tend to be very slow moving Japanese beetles. So if you really want to get after them, get up early in the morning, get after them when they're very tired and sleepy, and pluck those suckers off all of your plants. Okay. That was fun. This is an important topic because I really feel, especially for beginner gardeners or gardeners with small spaces, cut and come again flowers they make you feel real good. They make you feel successful. It makes you more bold to try other things. And so I feel like cut and come again flowers are just something that is really fun to focus on. Now, do I grow all cut and come again flowers? No, I don't. I grow a lot of flowers that are just one and done. However, those are lovely, and I maybe get to harvest them for 1 or 2 weeks out of the entire year, whereas zinnias and cosmos and snapdragons and sweet peas and celosia and gomphrena and straw flowers, All of those I get to harvest for multiple months throughout the season. All right, you all, let me know what I missed, because I'm sure I missed some cut flowers that you think are cut and come again flowers that are excellent for this list. So be sure to drop those in the comment below, letting me know what your favorite cut and come again flowers are. As always, make sure you like and comment on the video. Every time you like and comment, it helps grow my video so much. And if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, just drop me an emoji below, letting me know that you made it to the end of the video and you say hi. And be sure to jump over to my Patreon community. It is all things She's a Mad Gardener, and I would love to see y'all over there. It's basically where I do all my social media at this point. I don't usually do anything on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok anymore. Just completely focus on Patreon, because it's just people who actually want to be there for She's a Mad Gardener, which is really, really fun. There is a free level where you can just participate in whatever daily posts I might be making, and then there are additional paid levels where that'll give you more access to things like exclusive videos that are not available on YouTube, participating in chats, sharing photos of your gardens. It's a really fun, great group of people, so be sure to go over and check that out. The link is in the video description below. As always, she's a mad gardener or a decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.